My name is Mike, and I'm one of the product managers in the Oracle Analytics team. My area that I'm focused on is developer enablement. So working with yourselves to help you embed analytics into your websites, into your custom applications. And we're working all the time to increase the capabilities that we have within Oracle Analytics in that area. I'm joined today by my colleague Philippe. Hi Philippe. And Philippe is one of our analytics product managers, and he knows more about geospatial analysis than I've forgotten, so he'll be helping out with any questions that you may have in that area. So the first thing I'd like to do is, first of all, here are some sort of social links that you can use to interact with us. Here's the Slack channel, which is a public developer relations Slack channel. So, please sign up, please log into those. And if you've got any questions as well, please use the Q&A on the Zoom link. So I'm going to give a quick introduction to what we're going to be doing, and then I'll talk about the different products that we'll be using. So we're going to be using Oracle Analytics Cloud and Oracle Visual Builder. And then most of the session is going to be a live demo where I will build this mobile geospatial application using both of those products. So the idea of this session is that it's recorded, and there will be slides and material that you can download after the event. So you can do this in your own time. There will be links that you will be told about, which allow you to sign up for free trials within the Oracle Cloud. And if you do that, I think you get $500 for 30 days, and you'll be able to try this out yourself within your own time. If you're also following the series of events that we are running during Pi Day, so it's a global event if you weren't aware, and we have a session starting every hour, right back from when Pi Day started in Australia or New Zealand, wherever it was, right the way through the US time zones. So we also have a quiz. So this is the link to the quiz if you want to take part in that quiz and win swag and prizes. Okay, so data. We all know that data is a really valuable commodity. It can unlock insights that we didn't even know were there. And that's one of the key things that Oracle Analytics is about, is being able to use various analytic techniques to help you understand what's happening with data. And it doesn't really matter what sort of data it is. Now, once you've got that data into Oracle Analytics, creating an application can really help unlock the value of that data. And what we'll see within this particular scenario that we're talking about today is how you can make use of geospatial analytics and services such as location services that you're going to get on your device to apply filters to the data that you've got within Oracle Analytics. So here you can see this is what we're going to be building today. And this is a taster really for you to start to get an understanding of what you can do by building applications such as this and bringing these two kind of products together. So the potential is really endless as to the sort of things that you can do with this. And I'm just going to show you an example of this using geospatial data. Okay, so quick overview of the products. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure has got a very rich set of products. We're going to be talking about two of those today. So the first one is Oracle Analytics. And when we say an augmented analytics platform, what we mean is that we make use of machine learning techniques and statistical analysis to help you get a better understanding of the data. It will allow you to import data into Oracle Analytics and then run some machine learning algorithms in the background and start to give you visualizations that you may not have thought of creating to start with. In addition, we make use of natural language capabilities so that you can perform queries of Oracle Analytics using your voice or typing in a query, or we allow you to present the results of your analysis in a natural language way, and it will do that automatically for you. So that's kind of what we mean by an augmented analytics platform. We have connectivity to lots of different data sources, so not just Oracle, but we understand that your data is going to be all over the place. So we allow you to connect to, I think it's over 40 different data sources. And once you've made those connections to the data, we have capabilities which allow you to what we call prepare that data. So as we know, data is never clean when it first comes to us, and we need to do some preparation. You may want to enrich that data as well with other data so that it has a bit more meaning. And we also have we also have native mobile applications which you can use with Oracle Analytics. And today we'll be building our own custom application. So the typical kind of workflow when using analytics is to make the connections to the data source. You may want to create a data model depending on the use case that you have. So you may want to join different data sources together. You may want to join different tables together. I've mentioned data preparation. And then once you've got that data set, it's about exploring it. It's about asking questions of that data. And once you have potentially some data that you want to share, you can then send that to colleagues, you can collaborate, or you could build an application like we're going to be doing today. All right, so the next component that we're going to be talking about today is Visual Builder. And Visual Builder is one of Oracle's low-code development platforms. So specifically, especially if you're an analytics specialist, you may not know so much about creating custom applications. You may not know much about JavaScript or other programming languages. So what Oracle Visual Builder allows you to do is to create very useful custom applications with minimal coding. And that is my background. I have a background on the analytics side, and with a little bit of learning and experimentation, I've started to build these kind of applications within Visual Builder. And you'll see as we go through the demo that it's a very powerful platform to do that with very, very minimal coding required. So as you know, the bullet points are highlighting, I'm not going to read them all out. You can read them yourselves, but you can build up your application page, dragging and dropping components onto that canvas. And all the properties that are available that you can set are easily accessible from within the Visual Builder platform. It also has this capability of creating mobile applications, and you can see how the application will look on a kind of simulator. So here we've got an iPhone simulator that we'll be using today, or even a tablet, or other devices. And I think one of the most useful things really is how that device can interact with the world around it. So today we're going to be using the location services to use that to apply it as a filter. And if you are familiar with the coding, then it's very easy within Visual Builder to actually get access to the code and directly edit the code as well if you need to do that. And we will be doing that for a small part of our demo today when we are building some JavaScript functions, which will help us to create the values that we're going to be using in the filters to Oracle Analytics. And one of the great things about Visual Builder is that it's extendable. And using the component exchange, what we have done on the analytics team is to create a component which makes it easy to embed analytics into a Visual Builder application. So what that does is manages the embedding of analytics within a Visual Builder application. So it's incredibly powerful, and I'll show you how to get access to that and set that up as well. So this is our analytics web component that I've just been talking about. So the README has information how you can get started. I'll show you in the demo how we can apply and install that into a particular application that we're going to build in Visual Builder. And this is just a quick kind of look really to orientate ourselves as to what you can do with the analytics plugin. So on the left-hand side, you can see we have the structure of our application page. We're now in Visual Builder. We're looking at Visual Builder, and you can see that within this div tag, we have the Oracle Analytics project component. This is the embedded analytics that we have on our page. And then for the properties, you can see that there are sort of a minimum of 2 properties that we need to set, which is the host of the Oracle Analytics instance, and then the path to the project that we're working on. So as we go through the demo, you'll see how we make use of this to ultimately build an application. So one thing that's really important when building applications such as this is the setup and configuration that you will need to do for cross-origin resource sharing or CORS. If you ever try doing something like this, where you're embedding content from different places or different domains, then due to the internet browser trying to keep you safe on the internet, it will only allow content from domains to be embedded if it knows that it's a safe domain. So we have configuration in both Oracle Analytics and Visual Builder, which will allow you to tell each of those tools that the other is a safe service to work with. So within Oracle Analytics, we have a console, and you can add the domain of Visual Builder to a safe domain within Oracle Analytics. And then on the Visual Builder side, we have something called allowed origins. And you can add the origin, which would be again, the domain of your Oracle Analytics instance to be an allowed origin. So that is extremely important. If you don't have that configuration set up, then it's very likely that you won't see any of your content embedded into analytics. So that if you ever need to do troubleshooting, then that's the first thing to look at. A couple of other points when building an application is, typically if you're going to build an application, you're going to want to share it with lots of other users, especially if we're building a mobile application, which we can deploy as a PWA or progressive web application, which allows you to navigate to a URL, and then you can save that application onto your homepage. So it kind of just looks like you've installed the application. You click on it from your homepage, and then you log in, and then you get access to the application. So you may want to share that with many users. If you do, then you would be saving your analytics projects to the shared folder in the catalog. We'll see that in a moment. And then also the application role of the user. So if you've got a large population, it's very likely that your users are going to be coming in as a DV consumer application role. Okay, so let's get into the demonstration. And just to sort of reiterate, really, so these notes can be used after the event if you'd like to try and do this yourself. You can get access to an Oracle Cloud trial if you go to that URL, and I'm sure there's some PyDay URLs as well that will help you very quickly set up a trial. We've already mentioned setting up the cross-origin safe domains configuration. And so in terms of how we're going to build a demo, so we're going to get access to some geospatial data. And in this case, I've downloaded a geospatial data, which is showing me all the cities in the UK, the latitude and the longitude, the country, obviously it's the UK. And what I've done is I've added some information to that. So I have added some sales data to that. It contains population data, and I've generated a formula which is using some random number generation to come up with a kind of a sales figure that we can then use for some analytics. So that's my data set. And I obtained this from a website, Simple Maps Data GB Cities. It's available free under the MIT license. And there's also US cities there. There may be other cities from other countries available on that website as well. So that's just as a sort of a pointer just to what I used in case it's useful for you as well. Okay, so let's get into the live demo. So I'm going to move my slides away and going to bring up my analytics. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is to get the data that I just showed you in that spreadsheet into analytics. And I'm just going to refresh my page to make sure that everything is still live and logged in. Okay, so let me find my spreadsheet. Okay, so here's my spreadsheet, GB_PyDay data, and I'm going to drag this into analytics. So the easiest way to get data in, if you want to do something like this, to build a POC, or if you have some data that you want to do some agile analysis on, is to simply drag and drop it into Oracle Analytics. So let me just remove that. Okay, so it'll give me a preview of the data that I'm looking at, and it's going to save it as GB_PyDay data. So I can either go into a project straight away and visualize it, or in this case, I'm going to hit OK so that it imports the data, because we need to do some preparation on that data first of all. Okay, so the data that we've imported, if I go to the Data tab, and then if I search on that, so here's my GB_PyDay data that I've imported, and I can open this. And this is our data preparation screen within Analytics. So you can see as it's loading up the data, it's potentially making some recommendations. So this is where the machine learning aspects of Oracle Analytics come in. It understands certain data types, and it will make suggestions to me as to how I may want to enrich that data. We also have the ability to add custom enrichments. So you may have some domain-specific types of data that you may wish to have available to your end users to augment that data as needed. Now, the first thing we need to do is to, as I say, we need to do some preparation on this data. So we need to change the latitude and longitude so that Oracle Analytics understands that they are geographical information. So the first thing I'm going to do is convert these to text. And if I click on that, I can treat it as an attribute. Okay, now once I've done that, I can say location details. So I'm going in here and clicking on the menu options that appear. And then I can say that this is data of type latitude. So I've got OK. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is the same thing to longitude. Okay, and it's recognized it as longitude and it's told me it's valid. So that's great. I can do apply script to apply that to my data set. And then I can, up on the top right-hand side, I can say create workbook. All right, so now we're in the Oracle Analytics Visualize tab. And here we have a blank canvas where we can start to create the visualizations that we're going to use within our mobile application. So the easiest thing to do is to make a choice of city, latitude, and longitude. And then if I say create best visualization, it will understand that the data is geospatial, and it will give me a map of the UK, and all the data points are now plotted onto the canvas. Now, for this particular application, what you can see is that it's actually defined each city as a different color. Now, excuse me, now what I can do is drag that up to the category so that they're all the same color. And I could drag either population or sales. Maybe let's put population over as a color. And then you can see that there is a graduation of the different colors based on the population. Similarly, I could do that for the sales. So these are different ways that you can apply different techniques of analysis to your visualization. In this particular case, I'm just going to keep this as a map with all those cities plotted on it for now. And one of the things I'd like to do for this visualization is if I click on the visualization, you'll see that I then have some options that appear on the left-hand side. I'm going to change the map layer. Sorry, I'm going to change the layer type. Let me just give that, there you go. That's a little bit more useful. Okay, what I'm looking for is the background map. I'm going to change that to OpenStreetMap. Okay, so this kind of gives us a more useful kind of view of this. And the first thing I'm going to do is to save this now in the catalog. So remember I mentioned that when you're creating a mobile or any other custom application, then it's always a good thing to do to save it into the shared folders. And we can create a folder here. So we're on Pi Day. And then you can call that map view. So that's now being saved in the catalog. Because I have some data that I'm using within this, I'm getting prompted to say, because you're sharing this in the shared catalog, we also need to share those underlying artifacts. So I'm going to do save because I've accepted that, and that's good. So while that's generating the thumbnail, some of the things that I can do to prepare for building the application, I can give this a more meaningful name. So let's call this map, and quickly save that. The other thing that I'm interested in doing when you're embedding content is to look in what we call the developer tab. All right, so the developer tab in OAC, to find that, you would look at in your profile, in advanced, and then you would need to enable developer options, so toggle that switch. Once you've done that, you'll see that the developer menu option appears. So if you can't see that, then that's why. All right, so within here, there are some tabs that are really useful for us when we're building applications. So the first one is embed. And as the name suggests, if you were looking to embed this canvas into a website, then you could go here and you could get the information that you would need to be able to do that. Similarly, when we are embedding the content into the Visual Builder, in particular this canvas map, if I scroll down, you can see what we call the project path and the reference to the canvas. And this will become useful in a moment. In addition, we have this tab called JSON. And within the tab, you can see this JSON representation of the project. And some of the information that we're going to be making use of are the definition of the column expressions when we start to apply the filters. So we can get that information from this tab as well. So I'm going to go into Visual Builder now, and let's start building the mobile application. Okay. And, you know, just for your information, really, you can actually create as many canvases as you need to with different views of the data. And you could embed those into a custom application, multi-tab, so you can do navigation. For this particular case, we're going to keep it pretty simple, and we're going to create a single page mobile application. All right, so I'm going to say new application, and I'm going to call it Pi Day. And I'm going to create an empty application. So Visual Builder goes off and creates that kind of sandbox, if you like, and gives me a welcome screen. So let's close down the welcome screen. And on the left-hand side, you can see that we have a number of areas of Visual Builder. So I'm going to be creating a web application, but you could create, sorry, I'm going to create a mobile application. But as you can see, you can create web applications. It says I don't have any mobile apps defined yet. So I'm going to say create a mobile app and give it a name. And then we have different navigation styles. So if we had multiple canvases, then we could have different pages within the mobile app. I'm creating a simple page, so I'm going to not have any navigation. And the next page will say, do you want any tabs in it? Or it'll kind of give you different areas that you can use to lay out your application. So I'm going to do that myself. And it's now going to generate the application. And as you can see, we now have the iPhone 12 simulator shown by default. Along here, we have the components that are available to us to add. And we also have a template. So this is our page structure, which we will be working on in a moment. All right, so the first thing to do is to add the analytics component to our application. So if we navigate to components and then browse and search on analytics, we have the Oracle Analytics project, and I can install that into my environment. And you would install the analytics component for each application. Okay. Let's go back to our mobile application. Now, once we've added that mobile application in, if we scroll down, if we scroll down to the bottom here, then we'll see that component that we can add to our page. All right, so how are we going to, how is the application going to look? So let's think a little bit about how we want to design the application. So here is a mock-up of what I'm trying to build today. So what I'd like to give my end users as a user experience is the ability to say, enter a range, and then using location services on the mobile device, find all the points of interest that are within that range that you've requested. So we're going to have a text input field, which allows a user to enter a range. And we're going to use a button, which will accept that and kick off some calculations and variables, population with a location, and excuse me, apply the range that it's calculated as a filter to my embedded analytics. Okay, so how are we going to calculate that range? Now, given that it's Pi Day and we are talking about geospatial analytics, obviously Pi has been very important in terms of doing these types of calculations. I'm going to be using an approximation to determine, based on the range that I enter, a value for the longitude minimum and longitude maximum, as well as the latitude minimum and latitude maximum. And then I'm going to take those calculated values and pass them through to Oracle Analytics as a filter. Okay, right, let's start to build up our page. So the first thing that we need to do is to add, let's add an input text box. Actually, no, the first thing we can do is to give it a page title. So within Visual Builder, you can see that we have live design and code. So we're in design mode, and I'm going to navigate to my template, and I can give this a title: PyDay Geospatial Analytics. And obviously you can call that whatever you like. I'm now going to add an input text field so that we can ask the users for data. Okay. And I can put a hint on that to say enter range. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is add a button which is going to kick off the application of the filter. So if I just quickly scroll through and I can find a button and add that to my page. And we can say, what's nearby? Well, what's near me? And the next thing to do is to actually, we can now add our analytics components to the page. All right, so we'd like to have that at the same level as the Flex container. So by dragging the analytics component over to our application, we then are presented with the properties that I mentioned for adding that onto our page. So you can see that while we're waiting for that to add, it's saying configure analytics host and project path. So it's still in a kind of waiting state. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to go back to my analytics and I'm going to find the domain that I need to add. So you need to just add the domain up to .com. Okay, and then the project path. So we spoke about that earlier, and we said that to find the project path, you can get that from the developer tab. So I'm just trying to make that a little bit larger. Okay, so from embed, and here's my project path. We just need to take the path, copy that. And we're going to show a canvas, and I'm going to show the display tab 1. So that should now load up onto my mobile application. So when we're adding content to this page, we can actually go to the all properties, and we can set things like the style. So I know that my users are going to be using it on an iPhone as being the sort of smallest device. And we can also make some changes to this whereby we can say, I don't want to show the filter bar. And we also have some other properties such as disable mobile layout. So in this particular case, the disable mobile layout is intended for a different use case. So even though we're building a mobile application, by going disable mobile layout, you can actually explore the different options that you have there. All right, so let's just refresh this. And
hello, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Philip. One question came in from Oriol Romero, asking if in the display page, can we embed something else in a canvas? Can we embed a single visual as opposed to a canvas?
Yes. Well, that's a good question. So you could have a single visual on a canvas, but at the moment, we don't allow just a single visual. So at the moment, our embedding with analytics is always at the canvas level. Okay, so we've added the reference to our analytics project, but if we do a refresh on this page, so you may see a scenario whereby if you do a refresh, you'll see the loading icon from analytics, but you don't see the canvas. And the reason for that is due to differences between the JavaScript extension toolkit versions that are currently running on Oracle Visual Builder with this application and Oracle Analytics. And at the moment, they're different. So you can check that by going to the component. And if you see a little warning icon on the Oracle Analytics project, and you click on that, you will see that the application that we are using runs on Jet 11.15, whereas Oracle Analytics Cloud at the moment is still running on a version 10 of Jet. So that we can fix that by going to the top menu button, top right-hand side, and going to Settings, and then we can see the Oracle Jet version, and we can actually set a custom version of Jet to make this work. So the first thing we need to do is to change the Visual Builder runtime to 2110.0.2, and we can change the Jet version to 10.1.3. Okay, so we now have confirmation that those custom versions have been applied. And if we go to our application and hit refresh, we then see our map view appear. Now we can continue with the rest of the demonstration where we build up the variables that we use, as well as the JavaScript functions and the action chain. How do we build up this application in order to enter in a value, click on what's in range, and then have the filter applied? So the first thing that we would need to do is to set up a number of variables within Visual Builder. So we can add each of these variables, and each of these variables is going to be of type number. So we have the range. So when the user enters a range, we can then click on the data tab and we can assign it to that variable. So that's going to go into vRange. All right, and then we have my latitude and my longitude. So I mentioned that we were going to use location services to populate our location, and then we were going to find a range based on that location. So the my latitude and my longitude, we will populate using location services, and then we will calculate the range and store it into these other variables, LA max, LA min, LO max, and LO min. Okay, so we've got all the variables defined. And if we could navigate back to our application, when we click on the button, what's in range, after we've entered a range, we can then invoke an event. So within Visual Builder, that's called an action chain. So the action chain that we're going to build up, when you click on that button, is here. So we start, and first of all, we need to get our location. So when you build up the action chain, you can drag this over from the available options, and then it'll sort of have exception handling. And the first thing we want to do is to assign the action chain to our variables. All right, so the way that we could do that is to drag over assign variable, and then when we click on assign, we can say the results from our action chain, latitude and longitude, we want to assign those to my lat and longitude to my long. Okay. So now that we've got to the stage where we know where we are, and we have assigned our latitude and longitude to some variables, I then need to call some functions to be able to calculate those maximum, minimum ranges. Okay, so here's the code that we're going to use for that. And this is the only JavaScript code that we're going to be using within this session. And I'm using an approximation for the number of miles. So I'm going to be working in the unit of miles to work out the range. And if I say, a range of 50 miles or 70 miles, there's an approximation that says there are 54.6 degrees of longitude within a mile. And similarly for latitude, there are 69 there are 69 miles per degree of latitude. So they're the approximations that I'm going to be using. And here we have the functions which I'm going to pass my range into to return the values that we are then going to apply to the filter. Okay, so how do we do that within the action chain? So the first thing we do is to call the function. And now that we've got those functions defined within the action chain, I can assign those to variables, to the parameters that I'm passing to the function. So I've got the range from when the user entered in the text box the range and pressed the button, and then my latitude is what I've discovered from location services. I can then pass that to the function as lat. Now, once that function has been called and done the calculations, I can then assign the results from that function. So call function max lat, and then I can assign that back to latitude max. Okay, so our action chain will go through for each of the points in our range, calling those functions to assign those variables. So latitude max long, assign the variable longitude max, and then call function min long and assign the variable longitude min. So at the end of this action chain, we will now have a series of latitude and longitude, which we can then apply as a filter to the Oracle Analytics embedded content. All right, so now how do we do that? So in terms of applying a filter to analytics, here we have the definition of the filter we're going to use. All right, so in this case, you can see that we are referencing the column expression. And I have two filters in this particular case. So if I separate them there, you can see the top filter is being applied to latitude. And if I go through each of these parameters, we have, we're defining the operator. So we're doing a between operator. We're saying it's a numerical column. The option is not a date column. The option is double column, refers to a specific type of filter that Oracle Analytics allows you to perform. So in some cases, you may wish to offer your users let's say a product name, but the actual filter is being done on a product ID. And that's what we mean by a double column within this definition. So we know it's not a double column. And then the display values, which are what we're going to apply to the filter, we have two variables for latitude min and latitude max. And similarly for longitude, we have longitude min and longitude max. So we can take that JSON, and within our analytics project, we can copy and paste that JSON into that field. If you want to have a little bit more space for editing, then you can do that. You can bring up the expression editor. But what we've done is we've essentially copied that JSON into this field. Okay, so just to kind of summarize what we've done, we have our input text, we have our button, we have our embedded canvas, and then along the bottom here, I have 3 fields that I'm just using for troubleshooting purposes. You may or may not want to incorporate these within your application. You know, for example, it may be something that you would want to show users to say, well, actually, this is your location as determined from location services. And when you add these text areas onto your application, you can drag them over, and then the data points, you would reference the variables that you wish to show within there. And then similarly for the max lat and min lat, we are referencing those variables we defined earlier, and max long, min long, we have those variables. Okay, so now we're ready to test this out and see if it works. So if I move into the live mode, then even though I'm still in the kind of developer environment here, I can enter a range, and I'm going to put in 70 miles, and then I'm going to say what's in range. So you can see that it's calculated the location of where I am, and I'm in the southwest of England doing this session today. It's then calculated this range, which has been applied to the embedded content as a filter. And as you can see, this is interactive, and I can zoom in on this to see exactly what data points are nearby. And if I hover over these data points, then you can see the city as well as the latitude and longitude that's shown. Okay, so that is the end-to-end procedure for taking a spreadsheet of geographic information which contains latitude and longitude, and then we dragged that into Oracle Analytics, and we created a visualization. We have information for latitude, longitude, and city, and we then built a mobile template application, and we dragged over an input text which allowed a user to put in a range. If I change the range to 200, as you can see, it will then apply a different filter to my data. So really, the opportunities are endless as to how you can take information and present that to your end users using custom applications. You know, you can also see how this looks on an iPad, so you have a little bit more space to play with. But there you can see the range, the cutoff range from our calculations. And there are different ways of calculating the range as well. Like I said, we used an approximation of, you know, how many miles were in a degree of latitude and a degree of longitude. Now, in terms of rolling out the application and, you know, how it may look on your device. So within Visual Builder, we have a play button or a preview button. If I click on preview, it opens it up in a new tab, and it will give me a QR code, which allows me to actually say, well, I'd like to transfer this to my mobile device. So I could then take a mobile device, and I could read that QR code, and it will prompt me to log on to the Visual Builder application. So Visual Builder hosts the application, and I can then save that down to my homepage as a PWA, or progressive web application. And the PWA, you need to configure that within Visual Builder. So if I close that page, and within the mobile application itself, if I navigate to settings, then you can see that we have an area called PWA, which allows me to enable that as a progressive web application. Okay, so I'm just bringing over a demo video. This is recorded from my mobile device. There you go, you just see that in the frame. And I've saved the geospatial analytic application to my homepage as a progressive web application. And if I click on play, then the login has been speeded up a little bit. So I'm logging into the device. So I've logged into my application, and then the analytics appears on the device, and I can enter in a range, just as I was doing when I was in Visual Builder. Click on what's in range, and then assuming that location services has been enabled for this application, then you will get the results back. So, this is kind of useful, the sort of thing that somebody who's maybe traveling around a lot, or, you may want to monetize the data that you have and create an application that will help you monetize that data by offering a service to your customers. And your customers can then import, they can access your application, which is be using your data to, for example, find things that are of interest to them, and you are then offering a service. So essentially what we've done is in the last sort of half an hour or so, we've taken a data set and we've built this mobile application using Visual Builder. So let's go back to the deck. So the deck that should be available will have the steps that you need to go through, like that, to actually build this application yourself. And let me just find the final sort of slides that we can wrap up and take any questions.
I don't think there are any questions at this point, Mike.
Okay, well, that's great. So I'll keep an eye on the Slack channel. So here we have the Slack channel that I mentioned. And here is a QR code that will allow you to access the Oracle Cloud Free tier. I'll just leave that on there for a few seconds. And don't forget the Pi Day quiz. So there's the bit.ly link for that. And if there's no questions, thank you for attending this session. I hope you attend lots more sessions. If you're interested in further information on embedding content from Oracle Analytics in Visual Builder or in your own web applications or websites, then you can get some more information on my blog, which is insight2action.medium.com. And you should find some useful information there.
Hello, Mike. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think there's one question from Muhammad.
Okay.
Let me relate it up to you. How would you integrate OAC content outside of Visual Builder?
Okay, so in terms of being able to integrate content outside of Visual Builder, so if you wanted to, for example, integrate content into a web page, I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me just bring up a browser in the last few minutes of our session, and I will illustrate how you can take a canvas and embed that. So I have an example here, which, and you can access this URL, this link yourself as well. So this is available for anyone to access at the moment. And what we've now done is we've embedded an analytics canvas, but we've embedded it into a web page. So if I go to page source, and this is now the HTML behind that canvas embed that we were just looking at. Let me just, so for this embedded content, this is how we've done it. So we have standard sort of HTML. So we've got the head and we've got the body of the page. And the three main parts to this are, first of all, we need to reference our embedding.js framework. Once you've done that, you can then use what we have for embedding called the Oracle DV embedding tag. And similarly to what we did in Visual Builder, we have the path to the project we wish to embed, and similar options that you saw when we did the embedding in Visual Builder. And then because of the technologies that we are using, so we use require.js to track dependencies in terms of libraries. So here we can see the require.js command, and this is pretty standard when you're embedding Oracle Analytics content. And we also use knockout. So Oracle Jet, the JavaScript extension toolkit, makes use of knockout for certain implementations. And that is where you bind your sort of data to your view. So we need to apply the bindings. It's a knockout term function, apply bindings. So that would be a model for how you would embed content from analytics into any sort of web page, really. And then, you can see here we have that, and using the various kind of visualization types that we have within analytics, then I've got some on-canvas filters. I can actually do zooming of the chart that I have here. This is all on one canvas, so this allows me to do brushing. So if I click on one region there, you can see that my geographic map at the bottom, different areas will be highlighted based on where I click on some of these other visualizations. So, so yeah, hopefully that answers your question. As I say, if you check out my blog, then I will go through how to do this type of embedding. Okay, yeah. So another question: how do you handle missing values in Visual Builder?
If you want, I can answer this. This seems to be a map-related question.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Thanks,
if this is about ambiguous or missing values, if I'm reading your question correctly, what happens if cities don't have latitude information? In this case, this is a OAC question, a mapping question, not so much an integration. And they would not, in this case, they would not be represented in the map. If they're missing a lat or a long, they would not. Or, there are other ways to represent also cities on the map, which is not based on the lat and the long, but based on their name or some ID pointing out to a geometrical layer. So basically recognizing a city by its country/name. And in this case, ambiguous value would be recognized. So there are two ways. If you're missing lats and longs, they are not going to be represented. If you are using a ID or layer-based representation, then ambiguous values will be represented with obviously some information on the map about which one the system found ambiguous, and just giving you the opportunity to check that they're correctly matched or not.
Cool, thanks, Philippe. You know what, we've come to the end of our time. Thanks again for attending the session, and I really hope it's been useful and given you some ideas as to how you can use Oracle Analytics as well as Oracle Visual Builder to build your own applications. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Mike.